It's been a while for me too. I haven't been on a podcast. It's been a while too, so it's good. Getting back in the mix together.
Totally. Yeah. This is like harvesting time. It's like harvest time,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Perfect timing.
Yeah. Good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome to In the Act, a radio program on process and the creative life. Creativity does not just start and stop with artists. We all make aesthetic or guiding decisions. Our aim is to talk through the process and investigate how we choose to express ourselves and to live creatively. We're connecting with people about their lives, and that is the subject of our show. Broadcasting from Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Mead Community Radio, I am Erica Hunsinger, and this is In the Act. And today's guest on In the Act is Nina Soul.
Hey guys, Nina Soul here with the House of Spiritual Vibes. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show.
Yeah, that's great. So happy you're here. I wanted to have you on because I think it's so important to share people's stories and experiences in this community specifically, but, you know, the wider world as well. And we have like ties in Chicago. And I was wondering if we could start off with you kind of telling a little bit about yourself and like how you kind of got to where you're at right now.
For sure. Like,
yeah.
That is in like life or...
Yeah, that's a big question.
There's so many places I'm at.
You can. Yeah.
All right.
So whatever makes sense and what pops out to you that you think will be valuable, you know? I mean, not that everything is really, but we only have an hour.
So, I mean, I guess I could say definitely being born in a small town, try to travel as much as you can, try to get out there as much as you can, try to experience things. With my life, I've been very blessed to be able to travel. I'm not saying like leaving the country or anything, but I have been able to travel to places outside of my small town to get, to experience cultures, to live in certain situations and even develop skills because of experiencing those things. So definitely, if you are born in a small town, I would give you the advice to see what else is out there. Try living in a city, do the opposite of small town.
Yeah.
So, I was born in a small town, moved to Texas, moved around between Texas and Chicago a lot. Spent most of my life in Chicago.
Okay.
Ended up coming back here in 2020 when the pandemic and there was a lot of political stuff going on in Chicago at the same time.
Yeah.
So it became very dangerous for businesses in the area because there was a lot of looting going on. Buildings were being burned down. Vehicles were being blown up. It was a crazy time in Chicago, and I was right in the mix of all of it. So
wow. I didn't realize that. Where were you located?
Well, my business was located in Pilsen at the time.
Sure.
Which and a lot of our police in Chicago were going to places like downtown, to kind of like protect everybody around there. Well, then it kind of left like communities like Pilsen and other areas where it's majority people of color to kind of fend for ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going on, but at that time, there was a lot of people that kind of like made peace amongst each other for that moment. And it was amazing to see it because these are people that have been fighting over neighborhoods for a really long time. And they depended on each other to kind of lock things down and keep everybody safe because a lot of these businesses are owned by their moms, their, grandparents, their, so a lot of people kind of banded together in the community. And it was beautiful to see in the times that we were at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely something about having the same experience that you go through that bonds you with other people that may not be like-minded. I think that's a really interesting platform to jump off of or from.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Well, how did you decide to come to Sheboygan?
So my family was still here in Sheboygan. I would come and visit a lot. Like I don't want to say a lot because, holidays, stuff like that.
Sure.
I would come and see them.
Yeah.
So I would see the changes that were going on in Sheboygan. I would see that, they got a Dunkin' here now. What?
Right.
There were things that were like popping up that I'm like, oh, like there's some things that are happening here,
Right. Yeah.
Coming here in 2020, during that time, we weren't able to socialize or, meet up with people or anything. So I was very much in hermit mode, which was really good. I feel like it was a really good way for me to kind of acclimate back into this environment.
Sure. Yeah.
Being in the city for so long and then coming back into a small town.
Yeah.
And thankfully this town has been really working on, becoming more diverse.
Yes.
So, it was really nice to kind of come back. And I still feel like I brought a piece of something that was needed here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's almost like coming back to where I very first started.
Wow, like
full circle. Yeah.
But with gathered
knowledge, gathered experience, gathered culture, gathered all of that. Like it's almost like I went to go and harvest these things. And now that we're talking about harvesting, I went to go harvest these things and I literally brought it back to share it with everybody.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great story.
Mm-hmm.
So like in like origin story too, kind of backpedaling a tiny bit, like your focus, the spiritual vibes, this store, is it of the same sort of nature that it was in Chicago? And like, how was it born?
So spiritual vibes started in 2013.
Okay.
So I literally started as a vendor, 6-foot table. I at the time
because you just had interest in it, like growing up, like that was like your born into witchcraft, it's
very rooted in our culture. So a lot of like people of color, a lot of indigenous people, were very like dedicated to our ancestors, to our deities, our gods, our goddesses, our angels, whatever it is that you want to call them.
Yeah.
But we have a very strong bond and relationship with these things growing up right out of like just coming into the world, it's like, right away spirituality is introduced to us.
Wow.
To being raised in it, we don't know that it's not a thing. I just knew there was a lot, like my mom didn't want people coming over to the house. Like I couldn't have friends come to the house because at the time I didn't really think about it. Now that I look at it, my mom's got altars everywhere.
Oh.
So literally the living room, there's a shrine, there's altars everywhere in my mom's house. And
wow.
I grew up like that.
Right.
Me, it was never anything that we had to be careful of or, but with my mom, she tried really hard to kind of like protect us because we already dealt with a lot as a child growing up in a small town that wasn't diverse, wasn't a whole, we're probably the only brown family on our block.
Yeah.
So, there was still a lot going on. Back in those days, I was picked on for being a person of color. So I think that my mom wanted to kind of keep us from being as different from other people as,
right.
It was like, let's not tell them those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also had it.
Yeah. Don't be too loud.
Yeah.
Don't be too
Yeah.
in whatever way, like voice,
right.
space.
Yeah.
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 Right.
So, and then even with like foods, like my mom was really weird about like having my friends eat over.
Okay.
Because my friends, a lot of them, they weren't people of color. So it's like, they'd be like, oh, what are we eating? And like my mom would get like so annoyed because she's like, not every food has a name. Because we grew up where it's like she had to throw things together because my mom was a struggling single mother with 5 kids. She had to work on trying to feed all of us.
Absolutely.
So, we grew up, low income. We grew up struggling. We grew up, some days we didn't have like milk or we didn't have, so there was a lot of like lack as a child growing up.
Yeah.
So I kind of learned the skills of how to make do with what you have,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that really comes in handy, like growing up, like even as an adult, like to be adaptable.
Absolutely. Right.
And I feel like that's something else that was like instilled in us without us even knowing it or realizing it,
Right.
you know, because of course we would hear the adult talk, like, you know, we'd hear, oh, you know, we don't got this, we don't got that. And, you know, it kind of like, as kids, and I feel like a lot of adults don't realize how much kids really like listen and understand, and maybe they don't understand at that moment, but as they grow older and they start to learn more, they kind of reflect back on those things of, now that makes sense, now I understand. But kids are they're very intelligent, they're very smart. So like parents, if you're thinking like, oh, my kid is too young to know anything, they're not, and they will one day be at an age where they'll be able to know what it was that was actually going on or what was being said.
Right. They assimilate at their own level for sure.
Yeah.
They take that in.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Spiritual Vibes started in 2013. Let's see. In 2013, I was kind of at like a, you know, like I said, like growing up poor, even as like a, you know, my teens, my young adult, you know, I was even struggling when I started my business.
Yeah.
So I didn't have materials to buy art supplies, to buy paints, to buy canvases. I didn't have none of that. So what I did have was I had magazines, I had aluminum from cans, so I made jewelry out of all these things. I would roll the paper into beads. I would cut aluminum and like, you know, I'd cut plastic up and melt the plastic down and turn it into, like, I would make stuff out of stuff that was being thrown out.
Absolutely. Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd love to see those.
Yeah, so I have some of my old pieces. I'll have to show you, like, some of the things of, like, 2013. So I was vending at, like, these events, which is why I host events now, because I feel like it's my way of, like, you know, kind of giving back. But I was a vendor, and I had met, I call her my fairy godmother. I had met this wonderful woman. Her name's Heidi. Shout out to Heidi, fairy godmother.
Nice.
She's seen like potential in me. So she was somebody that really like invested in me. She had a business where it was a spiritual business that she had kind of like stepped away from. And she wanted to invest in me because she seen that I had potential. She like loved my enthusiasm because I've always been like, let's do it, let's get it, you know. So she's like, well, I'm gonna pass this stuff on to you, you know. And of course I like paid her for the supplies, but she really like helped me out as far as like getting me ahead. I've been very blessed and fortunate to come across people within my journey that kind of do that for me. That's how I know that it's like, when you become spiritually aligned and you're on your path in your destiny, there will be people that help you along the way. It's a lot like the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
A lot like the Wizard of Oz.
Funny.
Yeah. It's a lot like that yellow brick road. That's your that's your divine path.
Oh my
and
gosh.
You will run into people that will help you along the way. You will run into people that will challenge you along the way. But I was very blessed to have Miss Heidi, that she invested in me to be able to help me get started. So in 2015, I had opened a kiosk in Chicago at the Hip. Because I had talked to my cousin about my business ideas and stuff. She's like, don't even bother trying to call the mall because they're going to charge you like $1,300 for rent for a booth and blah, blah, blah. She's like, I know, I've looked into it. Well, she wasn't wrong. But the thing is that I just so happened to speak to the manager of the Hip, which is Harlem and Irving Plaza. It's a pretty big mall over there in the Chicago area.
Yep.
So I reached out. I just so happened to talk to a manager of the mall at the time that was into yoga, into meditation, into spirituality. She's like, this mall needs this.
Oh.
She's like, so instead of paying $1,300 a month, you'll pay me $500 a month.
Wow.
So boom, another person I met on the yellow brick road.
Right. And you know, I'm so glad that you're, you know, doing these shout outs to these pillar people in your life and on your journey.
Yeah.
You know, starting with your mother, and like that she's a strong base for you that taught you, but you know, taught you through like osmosis, right?
Yeah,
like that
she
you
taught
like
me strength, you know. She taught me endurance, she taught me strength, she taught me Like my mom was real hard. Like she's still, I talk about her. She's still real hard. Like she's not a very emotional, nurturing. She's more of a like, you got to G through everything. Like when I say G through, you got to like be a gangster about everything.
Right.
Because life is hard.
Yeah.
So that's how she raised me.
Right. Well, and then that passion and that like drive, I can't help but see Dorothy now, like, like you as Dorothy, like on this path, but that, it's like those integral pieces of like the passion, the belief, but that it always takes community. It always takes like, as much as we, have to ultimately do things on our own, that there are people around us that will come into our lives if we're open to it and flexible. And, I think you have such a generosity of spirit and compassionate. When I think of you, those are two really big elements that I experience with you. And I think that goes a long way. I think those like that sort of openness and connectedness down to yourself as well also allows for that potential relationships to come in and out of your life. I love it.
For sure. Yeah. And like you said, like those people coming into your life, I don't feel like there was ever a time that I looked for those people. Yeah. And I feel like when you look for those people, I feel like you could run into like lessons instead of like a blessing, Yeah. So it's like if you just focus on what you need to focus on, those people will come into your life. Like you don't even have to look for them. Just know that they'll come into your life.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm back in.
Nice. Nice.
Did you say somewhat?
It's been a while.
I know.
It's good. It's good.
So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Welcome back. This is In the Act. I am Erica Hunsinger, and we are here with Nina Soul.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Oh, I love it. We were like in synchronicity. I was like singing.
Nina Soul.
So cute.
Yeah.
And I thank you for sharing about your story, like some, early experiential and kind of your life story in that. Yeah. And I was wondering if you could, we ended the last piece with like that you don't have to just stay on your path. Just do what you need to do. Yeah. And allow for things to come in while you're on that path, right?
And that goes with everything. Like if you start to look at life and start to tell yourself, I don't chase, I attract. You like there's so many things that will, because when you think about what you would chase and what you would choose for yourself, what if what the universe has in store for you is more than what you're looking for?
Wow. Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
So how do I do
how would
that?
How do you do it?
Well, for the sake of being on the show, I won't go into too much of what I do.
Sure.
But meditation, anything that you can do to kind of like keep you chill. So I mean, there's other things that you could use, herbs, things like that. Essential oils. There's so many ways to like just kind of like keep yourself cool and chill.
That grounds you.
And ground yourself, especially as women. We can be very emotional and we can act out of emotion. Okay. So we need to find a chill pill. A healthy chill pill, of ways to be able to, and it becomes an exercise like anything else. When you're building muscle, when you're exercising, it's hard at first.
Right.
But once you start to develop the skill and you develop the muscle, you'll have a better like, oh, hold on, I'm starting to get emotional. Let me pull back on this. Being okay with telling people that you need time to think about it before making a decision. I always say, let me marinate on it.
Can you say that again?
I always say, let me marinate on it. I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Like I always say that because I feel like maybe I might come up with a question and like I would hate to put myself in a position where it's like, well, I've already committed, but I should have asked more questions.
Yes.
Yeah. And I feel like as women, we tend to forget that we do carry masculine energy within us.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely using that masculine energy to kind of put ourselves in check, like, this is a time for us to be strong and rational and create a plan, because that's our masculine energy. Then our feminine energy is more for like compassion, love, nurturing, those type of things. They both serve a purpose, but we're made of both. So why not utilize both energies?
Yeah. We're all made of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it becomes like, oh, I don't chase, I attract.
Okay.
So our masculine kind of has to check our feminine and be like, hey, don't forget, we don't need what is for us will come to us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I love the idea that meditation is one of the ways in which you ground. I have to take baths to ground. That's my grounding.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like I have too much fire sometimes. I actually need to soak in some water.
Yeah.
And use that as meditation. And when you're talking about like creating a muscle, creating that like system that you can tap back into, I think it's so hard for us to get started in practice, in whatever practice that is. And practicing to take care of yourself is things that I think most of us struggle with, that we have, like, we can do for others, but that ellipses of like, I can do for others, but how do I do for myself? And one way is to do that meditation and taking the time to do that. It's just so valuable. So,
and being consistent with it.
That's it.
We have to be consistent.
Right.
And we have to set boundaries also. Because, I had somebody the other day that she came into the shop, and I think she was a little offended that I didn't, like, remember her right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I had to explain to her, like, look, I'm, like, my memory is at the capacity where I have to choose what I'm going to remember.
Oh, yeah.
So
sure.
It's nothing against you. Like, you just have to refresh me a little bit on it, and then I'll remember. But, you kind of have to tell people, like, well, I'm choosing... because you can't say I can't. Well, I can't remember. No, it's not that I can't remember. I'm choosing to remember the things that I need to remember, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
So, we have to make sure that we set those boundaries, correct people when they need to be corrected.
Yeah. And I think that's really hard to do. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think it's really hard when you feel as if you've made a mistake and there's another person that in their energy or how they're responding or whatever that you've offended them in some way, but or whatever that is. And then you have to talk. It's better to talk about it and to acknowledge it so that you can get past it and through it, because it's a training exercise and teaching moment, right?
Yes.
Like in that. And it's so hard to do, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's those micro relationship pieces that, can set a person off for like the whole day had you not said anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you sit with it and replay it.
Right.
And then you're like, I should have said this. I should have acted like that. I should have did this. It's like, why do that to yourself?
Right. And then the other side is, why did she not do that? Why did she not know me? Why did she not like, how am I? Yeah.
That's part of like filtering what you're going to attract, because when we attract things, we're going to attract good and bad things, but we have to filter out the things that we don't want, and setting those boundaries and letting people know, like, we set the tone for how we want people to treat us, but we also have to set that tone within ourselves, because maybe we're not treating ourselves right either, So being consistent is part of that self-love. It is part of that dedication. And you have to give yourself that before you go out into this world and try to give it to other people.
I think that's really hard. I think that it's a skill that we're taught and know how to treat other people, but are really lacking in treating ourselves in the same way.
And sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing. So sometimes if you find it hard or challenging, it's not impossible. It's just a challenge. Yeah. But if you don't step to that challenge, you're always going to be met with that same test, always. So it is good to correct. I feel like sometimes people don't even like they're not even aware of their own actions and the way that they might talk to people.
Yeah.
So you might even be helping them out. Like I had a guy bump my car. I was at Quick Trip. And I sat in my car because I was like, I had an idea, and I was like, oh, let me look for this real quick before I pull off.
Yeah.
So I'm here with my idea and my my moment.
I love it.
All of a sudden, I just hear this loud boom, and I look, and this guy got out of the driver's side of his truck and smacked my car with his door.
What?
Yeah, so I got out of the car and I was like, you hit my car really hard. And I went to go check it. He's like, oh, there's nothing there. I was like, that was so rude. So
yeah.
I get back in the car. I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's think about this. Let's be rash. I was like, so then I waited until he came back out. When he came back out, I rolled my window down. I was like, excuse me, sir. I was like, you could have apologized. I was like, you could have just said, I'm sorry, I don't see any damage. I'm sorry that I hit your car.
Wow.
And then he was like, he was like, well, I was like, but the way that you said, there's nothing on there. I was like, it felt very, it felt like you weren't taking accountability for what you just did. You just smacked somebody else's property. And then he was like, well, it happens all the time. He was like, my car was just smacked the other day. I said, well, I didn't do it.
Right.
I was like, and if I would have did it, I would have told you I was sorry.
Right.
And he was like, well, I'm sorry, but. And I was like, hold on. I was like, you can start and you can end with that sentence. I'm sorry. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the but thing. You don't have to give me the reasons of why I'm making a big deal. I was like, the point is that this is my property and you smacked it with your property. And all you could just say is, I'm sorry I did that. It was an accident.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at you for it, but I do feel like you need to apologize to me. So he did. He's like, he looked me in my eyes. He's like, I'm sorry. I was like, thank you so much for apologizing to me.
Wow.
I was like, now we can go about our day. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was it. Because at that point, I'm like, if this man thinks that and I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If you think you can talk to me like that and keep on walking, guess what? I'm going to sit right here. I'm going to wait for you. And I'm going to let you know, correction, this woman, you're not going to treat like that.
Yes.
So, it happens. It happens. I mean,
that is such a valuable experience. For you, right. I see you shining differently in this moment, but also then what did that halted or whatever word you want to throw in there, his experience of it. And then, it sounds like he brought in a previous experience to yours. To me,
to
right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you corrected and planted him in the present.
Yes.
And then he was able to be retaught by you, by a stranger.
Yes.
In this moment. I mean, holy cats, is that a valuable experience, right? And that, honestly, it's like a huge gift. You just gave him a big gift.
Right.
And then he gave you one back. It's that is the pinnacle of human interactions.
Right.
If there's an issue, how do you deal with conflict? How do you address it? And how do you move through it? And that is perfect. And explains your values.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
If you didn't value him as a person, you could have walked away. You could have just driven away.
Right.
Ooh, that's my father.
See, but I think my value for me, first came to me as I know how much I pay for this vehicle every month. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. My value for me is I know how hard I work to have the things that I have. Okay. So and I did, so at first that's where it really came in. But I do feel like when we when we are correcting somebody, eye contact is really important. Yeah. You have to look somebody in their eyes. And I know a lot of people nowadays, they're pulling out their phone. They're like, oh, I'm going live. I'm going to go. Right. Yep. But no, I didn't do any of that. I respectfully, I very firmly said what I wanted. I want you to apologize to me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you did.
I knew what I wanted. I knew what was going to make me feel better. I went along my day feeling good.
I bet.
You know, I wasn't bothered anymore that my car got smacked. But if I never would have said anything and I would have just drove away and just went about my day, like how you said, I would have been sitting in that feeling of like, I should have said this to that guy.
Right.
I should have went into the gas station.
Right.
I should, you know what I mean? Because if I tap back into those emotions, again, that we as women have to make sure that we develop self-control, because that's how a lot of things can get messy. You know, I would say there's a lot of
messy, emotional men, by the way.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, because this man was getting very emotional. Yeah. But that's the thing, is that they also carry feminine energy within them.
Right.
And they don't always have a control over their emotions.
Right.
They like, strength, dominance,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate us unpacking this, probably 10-minute interaction into these micro movements and micro thoughts, because I think it's really helpful for how we're breaking down things in our own lives. I'm not sure I would have been able to get to the place of, what do I want? I want an apology, to identify it and not feel so aggressive about it. Because I think my approach would have been a little bit more fiery, which doesn't then help to de-escalate and connect with another person.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I appreciate that you also then kind of broke down that it wasn't just the value of that person, but it was the value of your car and your things and how hard you worked, and that's sort of this overarching thing. And it's usually not just one thing, right? It's usually this multiplex of components to arrive at something. So I want to tease more into this just for a second. I know that because this is really interesting and fun to me, but I think because you do such a good job at identifying and clarifying and reflecting for yourself, that your cyclical identification wheel, or whatever this is, to experience, reflect in the moment, figure out what I want, and approach it or say it, is a little bit faster and more grounded than a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
how do you think, why and how do you think that is?
Yeah, so this guy was in the gas station for about 5 minutes. So I had about 5 minutes to decide how I was going to go ahead and like you said, I feel like I've gotten so used to doing spiritual surgery for other people.
And what do you mean by that?
Spiritual surgery is because I am a medium, and I do offer my services, my spiritual services to clients. So I have clients every day that I have to kind of diagnose what's going on in their life and how it got there and how to make it better. And, so, and then I give them steps to navigate through what they're going through. So I kind of give them a roadmap.
Right.
So it's become very natural for me to also do that within myself, because I'm a very firm believer is how can you teach something, preach something, or give guidance if you're not following your own.
Right.
So you have to be a representation of the work that you do for other people.
And how do you do that for yourself?
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah.
That part is hard.
Yeah.
That's real hard.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that I've experienced and nobody has known about it.
Yeah.
Until I've gone through it. And then I share the story. Oh, I was going through this. They'll have no idea. No idea.
Yeah.
You carried yourself so well, but you were still doing this, but you were still taking care of your clients, but you were still, if I don't do those things as a medium, as a spiritualist, things for me will get really, it could get really messy, because spirits don't, we kind of have they know when I come into work, they know when it's time, but if I just completely stepped away from that, then it can kind of get out of control because they're not necessarily going to leave me alone because they know my purpose here and the way that I help other people. And there's a lot of people that depend on me. So I do kind of have to show up for myself to show up for others.
Like exercise.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I have a responsibility in that I've chosen coming into this life. I chose this responsibility. I took this on. So everything that comes in to try to like throw me off my track, you know, like I said, on that yellow brick road, you're going to run into people that are going to help you along the way, but you're also going to run into people that are going to challenge you along the way. And when you're doing good things for your community and for other people, it happens a lot. But the thing is that community leaders are not ever going to come to their community with their problem. They're going to try to fix it and find a solution on their own, but then help other people that might be experiencing a similar situation because they now gain the experience to be able to get out of those things.
Right.
So a lot of my stuff that I go through, I know is, well, I'm experiencing this because there's somebody that I'm going to need to help who's going to go through this. So like I said, I don't just show up for myself, but I show up for that person that's also going through what I'm going through at that time because I know they're going to need my help.
Wow. That feels very much like centered within a community as opposed to just centered within yourself.
Right.
There's a definite like caretaking element to, I mean, I'm using mothering, but fathering.
Oh, that works perfect. That works perfect.
Like for others, like for yourself, for others. And that feels very familial in its role. Yeah. That's how important it is.
Ache. Yes, because and when you say mothering, like that, it resonates so much with me because my guardian Orisha, and in my religious practice, we all have an Orisha or an angel that walks with us in this life. So my guardian Orisha is the mother Orisha, is Yemaya. So a lot of the things that I am meant to do in this life are within that energy. You know, so I kind of mother everybody. It don't matter, everything from a grown man to a little child. I'm big mama to everybody.
Totally. I totally get that energy. That's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I feel that my mission is to help humanity, to at least save who I can.
Ugh.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here. That's why this little 4'11", little short girl's here.
I love it so much.
Well, it's like when she saw those apples. You know what I'm saying? Those trees beat them up. Like, hey, just because they're here don't mean you can come and pick us, you know? And that's the thing, too. Sometimes what looks good on another path, it could be the very thing that takes you off of your own.
Ugh. This is In the Act. I'm Erica Hunsinger with here Nina Soul. We're talking with John about the Yellow Brick Road and there being hills and intersections, but also it's like the apples on the tree.
The apples on the tree.
You said them's my cherries, right? Which is
my cherries.
Harkening back to my father calling. I interviewed my father and he had a story about picking cherries from this tree. And so like there's this funny little, anyway, talking about fathering and parenting and like these larger community taking care ofs. And I want to get back to the Yellow Brick Road again and have you talk a little bit more about if somebody just because, what did you say? Just because
just because it looks good. And like, cause we were talking about the apples, just because it looks good and you might be hungry, that thing that looks good could be that very thing that takes you off of your path. You know, because if we referring back to the movie, when they went to go and grab these apples from the trees started beating them for taking their apples. It's like, you know, just because it's here and it looks good, it doesn't mean it's meant for you. And it could be something that takes you off of your path that, you know, who knows what you would have found more down the road, you know?
Right.
Another thing about that story that is really interesting to me and that, because I recently watched The Wizard of Oz. It was like one of my favorite movies growing up. is everybody that had helped Dorothy along her path on the yellow brick road is like we had these three main characters. You know, we had the Cowardly Lion, we had the Scarecrow, and then we had the Tin Man. And all of them were needing something. So they all wanted to go with her along the way because they were all going to find something for themselves.
Yeah.
But through this whole movie, now, so we got the Tin Man, right, that don't got a heart.
Yeah.
But he cries in the movie.
Yeah.
He rusts himself up because he cries. You have to have a heart. You have to have emotion to cry.
Yeah.
The Scarecrow, what was his thing? His thing was the intelligence. So when Dorothy was captured, he was actually the one that mastered the plan to go in there and get her.
Right.
Intelligence. Mm-hmm. We got the Cowardly Lion. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget, he went in there to go and get Dorothy. He comes running out. Yeah, he was scared.
Yeah.
But he went in there to go and get his friend.
Yeah.
So everybody in this story all had exactly what they needed from the beginning of the movie. And at the end, all they received were these tangible items, a ticking clock for a heart, a diploma for intelligence, and what was the other thing? Who was that? The Cowardly Lion. He got a medal for bravery and courage.
Right.
So they all had these things to begin with. Yeah. It's just that they needed something that represented those things in order for them to feel confident. Because you seen once the Scarecrow got the diploma, all of a sudden he's like, the blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah is the blah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. He all of a sudden got the confidence.
Right.
So in your journey, on your life path, feel free to look into things that are going to give you that confidence and knowing I have what I already need. I am this person.
Wow.
Yeah. That's where we get glamour magic that comes in. We could do a whole nother... That's like a whole other thing. But, you know, there's things that you can put on for your day that are going to help you to set the tone of whatever energy you're needing. It could be a color. It could be a metal. It could be jewelry. It could be your nails. It could be so many things. It's almost like creating your persona, creating your aesthetic, putting on your superhero costume, whatever it is that you want to call it.
Right.
But those things are, you know, the things that you're on this path feeling like you need to discover, you probably already have them.
That is such a lovely thing. And I love the idea that you're talking about these physical manifestations of these things and putting them around you or putting them on you. And I agree with you. I'm sure people do things all the time. Like, oh, I'm wearing my grandmother's ring to this event because then I'm carrying her with me and she represented X, Y, and Z to me. Or this is my grandfather's tool and this allows me to build my house better too. And, you know.
Even as spiritualists, we have our tools and things that we need to use. I have a beaded sash that I have to wear during doing readings, during consultations, because before I had that sash, I didn't know I needed one.
Yeah.
I had to get an exorcism because I am a medium, so I work with spirits very closely. And there was a spirit that didn't want to leave. So now I have to wear this sash to kind of like to protect myself from spirits entering me. It's okay to communicate with me, but now you're entering me. Now we got to kind of create this little, barrier. You know, so yeah, so that's, so there's even things that we have to wear as spiritualists, as, I'm an Abetepi. So, an Abetepi is, it's an initiated, I'm initiated in a religion where when I do certain things, I have to wear certain things.
Okay.
So, you know, even with that, everybody has things that they wear for certain purposes. Crystals, you know, if you feel like there's an energy that you need, is say you're very like fearful of like stepping out of your comfort zone and you want to be more confident and you want to try new things, get you a piece of carnelian. Wear carnelian on you because carnelian carries that frequency. So when you wear it, now you've just tricked the universe because now the universe sees that you're putting out this energy. You know, this energy of confidence, this energy of, you know, courage. And, you know, so you can tap into energies by wearing certain things.
Interesting. So I also want to touch on the fact that this is not necessarily mainstream. And for people who are, because we're in quite a monoculture, in lots of ways
Uh-huh.
that at times I feel seems restrictive, even though the tenets of it are like supposed to be open and like. So what are some inroads or some ways in which people can think or appreciate or like have love for you without feeling fearful, like of these practices and stuff? Like how, I don't know if I'm saying that all okay, but
No,
I think it's important.
I think I get it. So I'm a witch as well. So when I introduce myself, I don't introduce myself with labels. People don't know what I am until we get to having like certain conversations, and then I come out about certain things. So there's a way of introducing things to people. I feel like first I introduce myself.
Yes.
Nina Soul. Even when I explain my business, it's Nina Soul with House of Spiritual Vibes. I don't ever claim myself to be House of Spiritual Vibes. House of Spiritual Vibes is its own energy. It's its own entity. We walk together.
Yeah.
But, we're not the same person. We're not the same. We're two separate.
Yeah.
So I'm able to be Nina Soul without having to announce that I'm a witch and I'm an Apetepi and I'm in the religion of Ifa and I'm, people don't know these things until we get to talking about it. But first, I always introduce myself. I always give people the time to get to know me personally.
Yes.
Because I do feel like if it was just like, oh, I'm meeting a witch. Like you already have your assumptions, of what this person does. Especially if you've been raised in a religious household, a lot of those things come from a programmed way of thinking. So I don't even let a person tap into that programming of what they think of me. Like you're gonna meet me as a person, get to know me as a person before you make your judgments of who you think I am.
Right. Person-centered, person first.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And you exude love and caring and kindness and compassion. And how you talk about the world, having this like mama energy, I love that. And that's just so, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and even when people walk into the shop, like House of Spiritual Vibes, we cater to every spiritualist, every religion, we're not just for a specific religion, specific spirituality. We're open for anybody, even just people that are they like crystals, we're here for that too.
Yep.
But I feel like a lot of people come to me when, sometimes people they're like, I don't even know why I came here today, but I just felt like I needed to be here. Well, they might hear a conversation that takes place, and they'll come up to me later on and be like, I really needed to hear that. I know you weren't talking to me, but I really needed to hear what you said to that person, because I feel like that's why I came here, was just to hear that.
Right.
So, that's, I feel like, also too, being open to answer questions. I'm all for it.
Yes.
Like if you have a question in your head, don't try to give yourself an answer. Give me the opportunity to give you an answer.
Cool. Oh my God. Say it again for the people in the back. Ask more questions.
Ask more questions.
Yeah.
And don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Don't feel like you know everything about a person or everything. Because even as being a witch, all witches are different. Mm-hmm. My practice might not be the same as other people's practice. What witch means to me might mean something else to other people.
Right.
Yeah. So with me, the word witch is like a title, it's a label, but each letter represents something that. Each letter represents a way of how we're supposed to uphold ourselves and what we're supposed to show people and demonstrate as a witch.
What is yours?
Mine?
Yeah.
So W is for wisdom. Always acting from a place of wisdom, sharing wisdom, being teachable is also, part of.
For sure.
Yeah. Intuition or integrity.
Yeah.
Truth. Honesty, courage,
right?
Honor.
Wow.
Like how you said that I mentioned people that have helped me along the way. I feel like a lot of people forget the people that helped them along the way once they get to where they're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just want to sit in where they're at, and they don't even give acknowledgement or honor, to the people that helped you.
Right.
There's a lot of people that want to seem like they're self-made.
Yeah.
And like there was nobody that helped along the way. No, there were people that invested in you.
Absolutely.
Whether it been time, energy, materials.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. A whole host of people I've have helped me on my path for sure. Yeah. And I think it means a great deal to even reach back out, even if it's been years, just like, you know what? I was having tea with my dog, at 4:00, and suddenly it popped into my head when you helped me 20 years ago, find this studio for me or something. And that was really meaningful. Just shout out. Thank you. Hope you're doing good. I think those are like tiny little time gifts for people. And we all need them.
Yeah. And you can't be too proud.
We want to be seen.
Yeah.
And share.
Like
it's that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't wait till the end to roll the credits. Yeah.
Ashe. Yep.
Yeah. I want to jump back if we can.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask how you think creativity has helped to shape where you're at today. I mean, that is such a giant question because I see it everywhere with you. And we don't have to necessarily focus on these plastic and recycled materials that you use to create jewelry. But that is, as a metaphor, even, an analogy of taking what is excess or thrown away and choosing them, identifying and recreating something is such a beautiful transformation.
Yeah. And
I guess I wanted to ask, what pieces have been magnified in your life that feel really transformative?
When are we talking about pieces, or are we talking about
whatever rises up? 5 minutes. Sorry.
5 minutes. Okay. All right. So, when you asked that, I feel my dad around me a lot.
Yeah.
So my dad passed a few years ago. When I was growing up, he was the one that we would be at the beach and we would go on nature walks and bike rides, and I never seen him look at the time. My dad never wore a watch.
Wow.
And in those days, there wasn't really cell phones. It wasn't a thing.
No.
So he would just go and check on people. My dad was also a business owner. He believed in having multiple sources of income.
Yeah.
He was the one that I learned business from. Also, too, because there was one time that stands out to me. That it was, we were learning about Christopher Columbus in school. They had us do a project where we made these paper feathered things.
Yeah.
My dad was so mad. We're Indigenous.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
My dad was so mad. My dad wanted to know. He asked me, and with my dad just, he when I was little, he just seemed so huge and big, and, he was just, had this voice, and,
Yeah.
So he's asking me, well, what did they teach you? And I would get so small. They taught me this, and they said, and so then he starts schooling me on all this stuff that I hadn't heard about, the Trail of Tears, all these things. And he's no, I'm going in to talk to you. He went and yelled at my teacher.
Wow.
Because he got very offended about the feathered. I never got to wear my feathered thing, by the way.
Yeah.
He was he had he had to reteach me what I was learning.
Yeah.
So there was what I was learning, what I was being taught, what I was being shown in school, and then there was my dad reteaching me everything because he didn't like how I was being taught.
And it wasn't the full story.
It wasn't the full story being taught. It wasn't the truth.
Right.
And, the truthful stories were very, maybe not age appropriate, but my dad didn't believe in sheltering.
There's always a way to teach it.
Yeah.
There's always a way to truth appropriate teachings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my dad,
Age appropriate.
I feel he wanted to set, my dad never, he always treated me like I was a boy.
Yeah.
Like, he would get me boy clothes. I would get boy stuff all the time. Like, he always treated me like I was like a boy. He didn't want me to be too soft for the world. So, when it came to creating things and not having the materials, I feel like he's the one that really helped me to like step out the box and to look at things in a different way, because the way that you're being shown or the way that you've been taught, it's okay to question that, because you might be learning something that somebody else was taught, and the way that they learned, it doesn't mean that it's true. So right. I feel like he taught me to kind of look at things in a different way, and maybe even look at things of like, how can I recreate this? How can I change this? This is what it looks like right now, but I can do this differently.
Wow.
So
that's huge.
Yeah, and he always had me like researching things. If I had a question, he would have me look, try to figure it out. So when I wanted to start this business, I didn't even know if I knew I wanted to do something, because my dad had always taught me that as Indigenous people or people of color, he didn't think that it was okay for us to work for other people.
Yeah.
Because he said that when we work for other people, they set the bracket of how high we can go, how much we can achieve. So he was always like, no, you set your own. You say where your achievement is, how high you're gonna go. He's like, and as so long as you work for other people, you're always going to be told no.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So, 2013, I was like, I got to do something. I can't work for other people. My dad told me I have to be a business person. My dad did everything from construction, masonry. He used to paint church steeples, and he would pull himself up on the ropes to get up there. My dad would love to climb. He would stand on the top of these like church steeples, like the very top. People thought he was crazy.
Wow.
But he was never afraid of heights. He to me, he was the strongest man in the world. So
of course.
Yeah. But that's how he did things. He made jewelry. He made ceremonial like pieces, like the bone beads, the very long chest pieces for ceremonies and stuff. So he did everything. He did everything, and what I loved about him and what he showed me is that he was never on anybody else's time but his own. So his time with his kids, there was nobody that was going to call him and tell him, hey, you got to get to work. No, his time would be with his kids. If we're out on a boat in Lake Michigan, he was in no rush.
Right.
Because he always said he was his own boss.
Wow.
Yeah. So I knew that at that age, growing up as a kid, seeing my dad, seeing him as an entrepreneur, having multiple sources of income, running multiple businesses. He had a restaurant. He had a store that he made jewelry in. He had construction business. He had all these things. And he still had time. Like he created time, he made time. Like, so anything that I had going on at school, like, Christmas pageants and stuff, he would go, he would watch, parent teacher conferences, or like for him to, stand up in my class to talk about his businesses. He always made time for those things.
Yeah.
So I knew that as an adult, I wanted to be in control of my time. I wanted to be in control of my success.
Right.
I wanted to set my own bar.
Right.
Yeah.
You have.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you are, because have is in the past and are is continuing.
I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Yeah, no problem.
This has been a really beautiful sitting in of your values in life and creativity and self and what you're sharing in the world. And we are the better for it. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
And how can people get a hold of you if they need to get a hold of you?
Oh, so you guys can get a hold of me. I am the owner of House of Spiritual Vibes, Botanica, LLC, here in Sheboygan at 923 Michigan Avenue. You can also contact me by phone at 920-457-4213. I also host the local witches markets here in Sheboygan. So anytime you guys see that there's like an event happening, there's a witches market, that's probably me. Yeah, and now you guys can even stay at my Airbnb because I'm now hosting an Airbnb in Sheboygan. So those are all the ways you can get a hold of me. You can also find me on social media, Facebook, TikTok. Yeah.
House of Spiritual Vibes.
House of Spiritual Vibes
Excellent.
everywhere.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Huge thanks to Mead Public Library, the fantastic Melissa Prentice, Josh Littner, Annalisa Finca, the radio committee, our amazing engineer, John Tully, and for the title, Photo and Fabulous, theme music composed and performed by Cooper Deers.
In the Act is produced in the studios at Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. More information on the web at meadpl.org.